Have you ever tried to organize a holiday for 5 people who live in 3 different countries? 2 couples, 1 single person, 1 person with gluten intolerance, 2 people who get seasick, 1 person who gets car sick, few people who wants to have lazy beach-style holiday, few people who wants to go for the active sightseeing. You need to think about budgets, who's going to drive, how you're going to fly, where you're going to meet. It's going to be morning flights or evening flights. You all have to request days at work. You're going to book through Airbnb or Booking.com. This is exactly the same problem as we all face at work as designers. But first, a little bit about myself. Hi, my name is Olga. I'm a lead product designer at Adyen. I've been working there for a year and a half so far. I've been living in Amsterdam for almost a decade. And this is what my friends still think I'm doing here. This is what my parents think I'm doing here. This is what I'd like to believe I'm doing here. And this is what I'm actually doing. Driving through the rain and wind every day to the office. But back to the topic. I'm going to tell you 3 stories, my personal experience, and a few learnings that I got from there. I hope you will also find it very useful, as I did. So first to the story A. It's one of my adventures where I got a chance to learn quite a lot. Imagine a big cargo ship. So you're a driver. I don't think you can say driver of cargo ship. Anyway, you're a driver of a big cargo ship. You're going full speed on, and in the middle of the way, someone tells you you need to turn 180 degrees back. It's going to be really hard. Now imagine you're on a speedboat. Turning backwards doesn't look that hard anymore. Changing direction on a speedboat, easy. So my point is that changing a way of work of individual team is way easier than changing of work of the whole company. So in this bank where I was working, the company decided to switch to agile way of working. And instead of imposing this new methodology on the whole company immediately, they started with a smaller, or like on a lower level with the individual teams. And big companies, they are really full of inertia. And startups are so successful because they're like speedboats. They can change their direction anytime they want. So introducing changes in small and familiar bits to individual teams became a key success for the general change of culture in this company. We managed to add this startup vibe in our big company. So this bank decided to work with the Spotify model. If you're not familiar, Spotify model works this way. Designers, product owners, front-end developers, back-end developers, researchers, whoever is set for the challenge, put into a squad. A bunch of squads form a tribe. So in this bank, I was working with the wholesale tribe and with security tribe. A bunch of designers across different squads form a chapter. The chapter can be also formed by developers, for example, or researchers. Sometimes people form a guild. It's basically people across different chapters and different squads. They group together depending on the challenge they have. So I was put to work with 2 different squads as a part of this new way of working. The idea was that designers and their processes will become a part of the development cycle. It means that all my tasks were put in Jira, as a part of the ticketing system. It also means that all estimations of time and effort were done by including everything that I was doing. As I was working with 2 different tribes in 2 different squads, I realized that maturity level of different teams was very different. And at first, it was actually a real struggle because developers didn't always understood what they should expect from me. My expectation didn't always match with whatever they were doing. And it was kind of complicated and hard. But after we acknowledged the fact that we have this communication issue, and we accepted that we will need time to adjust to the new way of working, and we need to have an open and transparent communication, this really helped our teams to grow. It actually had kind of a spillover effect. Other teams saw how we are working and how it impacts our processes, and they were more open to adopt new methodology themselves. Unfortunately, change is not always easy, if not everyone is willing to participate. When business goals are overtaking user goals and team goals, things will go south. So in our case, some business goals were introduced, and business didn't really consult that much with the developers' teams and with the product owners. And new priorities were introduced, team priorities were moved aside, and things started to get postponed. That was the moment when I actually left. What I learned from this experience. One of the biggest things that I learned there is basically was about the user testings. This bank had its own testing lab. So it means that we usually would invite users to test. We had 2 rooms as normal, good testing lab. What I managed to do that time, I invited developers to my user testings. And I had sort of like epiphany, sort of like enlightenment moment when I saw developers sitting in this other room without harassing my users. So they were sitting there and they were watching on the screen how users are interacting with the interface, that we implemented some changes there together with the developers. And they saw how those small changes were having this enormous impact on the user experience that the user was experiencing in the other room. And they were able to empathize not only with the user, but also they were able to understand how I'm working as a designer. So the learning is that we need to invite other team members to our user testings. We need to involve them at different stages of our processes. And if we don't have possibility, if we don't have such luxury as a testing lab, and we need to present results of our research, we should not present it just as a dry fact. We need to create some kind of a compelling story with a lot of details, complexity, create some sort of a protagonist, so the developers can empathize with the user and be more willing to work together with you. Now to my story B. I call it as a how to start a development riot. Do you know why you cannot have sex on the Red Square? Too many advisors. No one really likes to be told what to do. So they didn't like people in this bank when external agency that board actually hired came with a ready-made solution. I joined this company when the process was already ongoing for 2 years. This external agency arrived as the knight in the shining armor with their shiny designs, ready to solve all the problems. They didn't really consult with the users. They didn't really talk to teams inside the bank. In general, they didn't try to understand what they were solving. So fresh look is not a design requirement, at least not the one that we should follow. So this approach raised more questions than it's actually answered. Delivering a static design that lives on its own in a vacuum was a very bad idea. So it became like a small-scale riot on the development side. So from one side, your designs should be buildable. Developers should feel excited about whatever challenge you're bringing for them. The other thing, all the estimations that were brought by this agency, they literally went to trash because they never consulted with developers, so they were not able to create some realistic timeline. So as a result, this so-called fresh look update got stretched for years, and the designs got Frankensteined halfway through by the in-house teams. So this agency, what they really failed to do, besides the design, they actually failed to establish relationship. According to science, relationship is actually built on the 3 pillars. The first pillar is power and control. It's not necessarily that the agency took wrong decisions, but they took these decisions without people inside the bank. They didn't involve them. The second pillar is the care and closeness. It didn't feel like they were building this solution together with the developers and the in-house teams. They didn't feel like they cared about them at all. And the third is the respect and recognition. This agency didn't show that they were valuing or accepting or acknowledging the efforts that this bank already had, the teams from this bank already had. So what I learned to do better next time. If I'm external, I would try to go to my client as early as I can and talk not only to the business and product managers, but also to developers. These people know products from inside out. And if I'm internal, I will try to run design sprints by involving very different stakeholders, everyone who possibly can give me some useful information. And maybe these design sprints are not going to help to uncover all the questions, but it definitely will help to set the right ones. So how all this is related to my holiday. Remember that story, 5 people, 3 different countries? It's all about communication. To understand what other people want, do, expect you to do, we really need to talk to each other. I was able to organize an amazing holiday that we still think during the cold winters about, only because we set up a group chat as a very close friends, and we were able to talk honestly about what we want and what we expect from these holidays. We're not telepaths. We cannot read other people's minds, and we also cannot know everything in the world. We remember it very well when it comes to the users, but somehow we tend to forget it when it comes to our teammates. We're contributing to a product as a whole, so we need to approach our work holistically. This is how I actually wanted to call my talk, but my colleague Pedro said it's too pretentious. Anyway, I really like this word, and I do believe it applies really well to what I'm trying to say. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, holistic means dealing with or treating the whole of something or someone and not just a part. Simply, it means that everything is interconnected. We're creating something together. By connecting our works, we're creating something that is just bigger than our small piece. And our work doesn't exist on its own. It's always a part of a whole. And to be aware of what is happening on other levels, to understand our dependencies, we need to talk to each other. We need to establish really good communication with each other. Our product is a whole. It's never bits and pieces. Esther Perel, a Belgian therapist, in her talk at the Creative Mornings said, people are able to do their work because other people do their work. It's almost never one person. It's a group effort. So now to my third experience, and I feel like it's somehow a success story. It's a company where people really trying to follow this approach in their daily work. So what we do differently? I'm not going to surprise anyone saying that we have regular design reviews. But what we do differently, we invite non-designers to our design reviews. These people always help to bring an amazing insights and help us to look at our problems from a different view. As designers, we're trying not to be outsiders. We're trying to incorporate designers at the core of every product team. We participate in team plannings. We participate in creation of quarterly and yearly goals. And we empower collaboration. This principle lies at the heart of work at Adyen. People talk to each other a lot. It could be just like a quick 2 minutes chit-chat while you're standing in line for a coffee, or it can be a whole day session when we fly to the other offices in other continents and try to understand how our colleagues work. Or, for example, we utilize the floor planning. Of course, we have mostly open floor plan, and people really collaborate with each other, different teams. But when we have a task that team need to focus themselves and they need to collaborate within the team heavily. We gave them the entire floor just for themselves, and they were able to deliver fast and right. So the other story is about our IDN formulas. In IDN, we have IDN formula. It's basically a set of principles that we try to follow in our everyday work. It's not just written on paper. We actually do this. The first one, we don't hide behind email. Instead, we pick up the phone. We live and work across different time zones and continents. And sometimes it feels like email would be a right solution for exchanging some information. But if you can find this 2 minutes on the crossing of your time zones and have one call instead of exchanging 10 emails for a week, you will get so much more. First of all, you will get the right information, and second, you will establish a relationship. The other formula that we have, we talk straight without being rude. I think it's kind of a Dutch thing, because we're a Dutch company, it's this directness thing. We try to say it as it is. If it's good, we acknowledge it. If it's bad, we will try to give you constructive feedback. This is where it's so important to have the right relationship with your teammates. Because if you get the rough feedback from a friend, it will feel very different as getting rough feedback from a random person. In the first place, it will feel like this feedback comes from the place of care and support. And in the second place, there is a big chance that you will get defensive and dismiss the whole feedback, even if it was right. And the last formula that I want to mention, we include different people to sharpen our ideas. Every team creates its own goals and priorities together. Designers are involved in development cycle. Developers involved in design processes. But this point goes beyond that. We're also trying to make our team truly diverse. It means that we don't hire just to tick the box for diversity. But it's been proven again and again that teams that are diverse create better products and generally working better. If you remember 2 things from today, please remember this. Empathy is a very powerful tool. We need to try to change people's minds and hearts one by one, and it will have a ripple effect within your company. Eventually, the culture will change. And try to involve people with different backgrounds. We're all like unicorns. We possess different experiences and unique knowledge. Together, we can make way better products. And as a little bonus, let's try not to make it perfect from the start. As Churchill said, success is ability to move from failure to failure without losing the enthusiasm. It's an evolution, not a revolution. Thank you.